Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Turnabout Podcast. I am your co host, the last day of gender. There will be no more gender moving on, not ever.
Gender not allowed anymore.
No.
Back off, bitch.
Stop smooching with me, gender.
Great. Great news.
Thank you.
And I am March, April, and May. Not to be confused with April, May. I'm her sister, March, April, and May.
I was just about to say, you're 3 months. You must be really thick.
Yes.
Welcome
back for season 2.
Welcome back, bitches.
We're getting very close to our 1-year anniversary, which is exciting.
But yeah, it's good to be back. I've missed saying welcome back to Turnabout
Absolutely.
Podcast. And you know what else I miss saying?
No.
Bestie sock.
Bestie shoe.
Absolutely bestie sock. So after a 1-month hiatus, we are back.
The bestie footwears are back.
Absolutely. And better than ever. We hope your summer has been nothing short of amazing.
Yes.
And if you're tuning back in, we've missed you. And spoiler alert. See, I remembered. And
Perfect.
What else?
I sincerely hope that all of you guys have been able to play the Great Ace Attorney.
Yes, we need to update. Okay,
and have enjoyed it.
The update is that it's moving really slow at the moment. Because Lucie doesn't have the game currently, and
No.
I am taking my time with it.
I'm actually so sad that I can't play it because every time I log onto Twitter, it's just people discussing those games, and I'm like, I'm gonna gouge my eyes out.
Just don't log into Twitter.
But how would I know if Kylie Jenner is pregnant if I don't log into Twitter?
She is.
That's the rumors.
That's the word on the street. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so if Lucie has to play it from the beginning, I'm still in the second case. I said it's moving really slowly because I don't want to give anything away. I want to keep everything for the discussion, but I think Shu Takumi really said, I'm gonna give each character about 1 million lines of dialogue. And I'm a very impatient person, so I'm really kind of struggling playing it. I find myself turning it on and then just saving after 8 minutes or something and then putting it off for 2 days.
What did you think of the first case?
The first case. I thought the first case was story-wise, not length.
No, kind of murder and characters and,
It was an okay tutorial. Okay. I liked how they incorporate elements which otherwise couldn't have been incorporated into Phoenix's life, the shifting politics and countries, because it's still Victorian era England / I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Meiji period. That's what it's called. But that's interesting to see how the relationship between countries affects the in-game story. And there's also a new gameplay feature which I enjoyed. Oh, and I kind of laughed out loud a couple of times.
Oh, okay, so that's
when
good.
When it's good, but it takes its time.
Okay, yeah, that's got it.
So if we're being optimistic, then I'm thinking that best case scenario, we're gonna start talking about DGS fully on with full spoilers for everything in early 2022.
Okay, I was gonna say about December, so ish the same thing.
Bitch, we have
End of
uni.
2021, beginning of 2022. But the
Because
thing
now
that
it's
scares me
summer.
is that, yeah, and also there's 2 games.
Oh, yeah.
It's much longer. So,
I
and I need
mean,
to find a way to play it. I'm gonna
Snap,
figure
who
it
has
out.
been on the podcast before,
Mm,
we link his pages below so you can go check him out.
our
He,
beloved guest.
yes, our hostage, which has managed to escape. We've spoken last week, and I know he also takes his time playing Ace Attorney. Like when you both agreed that you like to present every piece of evidence to every character to see the reactions. But I know that he's also like he reads fast. This is just something that I've gathered, but yeah, he's also still on the first game, and he's been playing it regularly, I think.
I get
So,
that.
I mean, getting to the end of the second game is going to take a long time.
Yeah,
I think we forgot how long it takes for a game
definitely.
to be played.
I replayed a couple of cases
Mm,
this summer, and just like Turnabout Corner was actually pretty quick,
yeah.
but the Turnabout Aquatic, the Reclaim one, we call it the Aquatic Turnabout, it was like, I don't know, it felt like 6 or 7 hours, which I don't think
Mm,
is realistic. Like, I think it might have been less, but it
yeah.
was really, really long.
No, I get that. Like, I'll tell you what the thing is. My theory is that because the last full-on Ace Attorney game we both played was Investigations 2, and I think Investigations
Mm,
2 moves at a different pace because you get to move around.
yeah.
And it's much more interactive, whereas the other one, you're reading a novel. So
Yeah, you
with
definitely have much more
DGS,
freedom.
yeah, you just for the DGS and the like normal games, you just I guess you need to strap in for like a couple of hours of reading. Whereas the other one, you just control Edgeworth with his little bouncing cravat, like moving around. It's different,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And also, I know it sounds silly, but because I played Investigation 2 on a computer, it felt like, because I was always on my computer, like for school and stuff, I had much more time to do it. Whereas, like, when I'm playing on DS or something, I have to like look for my DS and open it, and I don't know. It felt like more of a step. Whereas like computer was so easy, I played Investigation 2 all the time.
Definitely easier access because when I was playing Investigations 2, I could be like doing work and then just switching it
Yeah,
off, which I'm shocked because it's been over a year since I've played it.
I know.
I know.
It's
Um,
crazy. I was thinking about that because we're soon gonna be um, arriving at our 1 year anniversary. And I remember we started the podcast right I was playing it. Like it was kind of this stage of our first term, second year. Good times.
As walking to my apartment after shopping for ingredients for dinner and singing the Catherine Hall leitmotif
Absolutely.
in the street. So, without further ado, welcome back. Spoiler alert. And with that update out of the way, before we get into the episode, it's time for our weekly featured artists.
Absolutely.
So, Lucy, will you do the honors?
Absolutely. This week we're featuring zoejayw or zoejayw. There's a W in some of her J, who is a lovely artist who gave us permission to feature art. So thank you, Zoe. We're very appreciative. And she has some amazing pieces.
Um, I've listed a couple of favorites. I actually
Yeah,
couldn't decide on one. Should I go ahead?
absolutely.
The thing is, what I'm so happy that Zoe is um, the first artist we feature after our hiatus because I think
Yes.
it has a bit of a sentimental spot for me, like returning.
Mm,
As you said, it's season 2. But um, I think what's amazing is that while I was screenshotting the work to send to you, I had to keep checking the caption because Zoe has managed to adopt so many different styles that I
Mm,
thought she was reposting other people's work. But
yeah,
it's all her own, and it's so amazing that she manages to shift from style to style
definitely.
effortlessly. Like it looks so good in all of the styles, and that takes a lot of skill. Like it's insane. There's some pieces which have patterns, and then there's other pieces which are just monochromatic, and then there's also characters that look like chibi. Like it's a complete full package. Um, but yeah, so should I go over my favorites real quick?
Yes, and to anyone who's listening, it's kind of a news, but you're actually legally required to go on her page and to like all of her pictures. It's a new law that just passed, but you have to.
Yeah, I heard it this morning, so
Mm,
I have already completed it.
yes.
Um, so yeah, my favorites are. I'm leaving my most favorite one for last. So my favorites
I
are
wonder if we're gonna have the same one.
I don't think mine is really specific.
Okay.
So the first one is the completely blue one, which is Phoenix and Trucy.
Yeah.
I love that one. I think like it belongs in a children's book. It looks so good.
Definitely.
Look at Trucy.
She's so adorable.
And
So cute.
like
The movement of
Phoenix.
her little legs.
Yeah. And Phoenix sinking into his hoodie.
Yeah.
I love it. And then the second one is, I don't ship Maya and Francisca, but here I couldn't help but like the aww when they're in their kimonos and Maya is giving
Oh,
Francisca the
yeah.
apple.
Just adorable.
They look so cute together. They look like a couple.
And the details are amazing, like the bagatama on Maya's like kimonos. It's so cool.
And in turn, Francisca has a prosecutor's badge.
Mm,
It looks so cute. It looks so
so
cute.
cute.
And then the third one is the one which I'm assuming took the most to complete because holy shit, is this a masterpiece? It's the one where Mia, Edgeworth, and Phoenix look like they're sitting in a campus lawn and they're like drinking and playing chess. And there's just patterns everywhere, but it works because it's just a specific palette of colors.
Yeah, the
Like,
red and the blue.
yes, I like this is so good. It's so
It's
good.
amazing.
I don't even know how many hours this took because holy shit.
It looks gorgeous. Yeah, definitely.
So, what do you think is my favorite then?
You haven't named your favorite.
No.
So you've said it's very specific.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of thinking it might be Phoenix and Mia wearing like heart-shaped boob
No.
sweaters. It's
It's
not this
not.
one.
Although
Which
that
one?
piece is cute.
It's so cute.
My favorite piece out of everything is
Oh,
that
I know what it is.
what?
It's Ghost Trick.
No.
Oh, shoot. Okay, so tell me.
So, my favorite piece out of everything is that when Zoe uploaded the sticker she made the Isaac Dover tea set from Investigations
That's my
2.
favorite too. I had written it down. I was like, that's the tea set
That's
from
the
the
tea
Kate Hall
set!
thing with the crescent and the stars.
It took, when I saw it, it took me a minute. I was like, where have I seen that
Me
before?
too, because I was like, that's not from Phoenix, right? Like, that's another thing of pop culture that I do know. And I was like,
Yeah.
is it Sailor Moon for a second? And I was like, oh no, It's Catherine Hall serving us tea.
With the little Yatakarasu card there behind.
It's incredible.
It took me a second, but when I got it, I was like, okay, I don't care what else I find on Zoe's page. This is hands
Yeah.
down my favorite. It is my favorite. Like, it's such a detail. It's such a, like, you'd never, if you were gonna do fan art, you'd never be like, oh, I'll do Isaac Davers tea set. No.
Yeah.
But now, I, I, I want that sticker. Like, I want it for the back of my phone. I want
It's
it.
definitely adorable, and I don't know, it's so cute when you realize that other people notices and remember small stuff like that. Like, it really
Exactly.
shows true appreciation for the franchise in such details, and it was really, really cute. It was one of my favorites.
It's super cute. So yeah, that's your favorite as well?
It wasn't my number one, but I had written three things, which was this sticker like, also the stickers in general were adorable,
Yeah.
and it was just super well made, super detailed. I really liked it. Then there's several. One of the things she posted that she refers to as some of her comic pages.
Yeah.
Those are incredible. I kind of want to re-feature Zoe, and just for her comics, like, we read the comic and then we, like, that's what we feature in an upcoming
Okay.
episode. Zoe, if you're listening and you're up for it, we'd love to, because I was like, this looks stunning. And kind of in the same way that you said that, like, that that drawing with Trucy should be in, like, a kid's book. And I
Yeah.
totally agree. I think it would be wonderful. Like, I had never seen graphics like that for comics. I was like, oh, I want to read that. Like, I'm so intrigued. So yeah, but my number one, and I was literally like breathless when I saw it. I was like, oh, this hits the spot. Is the one. The caption is 1-5 going to 2-2,
Is it
and it's like this kind
the
of
Mia
painting
one?
of, like, Mia, Phoenix, and Edgeworth. I love this one so much. I thought it looked incredible, like the colors and everything, and for some reason I want it on a shirt. Like, I really want it on a shirt. I think it would look really good, and I don't know, I loved it. I thought that the scheme was, like, the fire, and it looked incredible, and I love it.
It's cute. I really like how it all comes together. Like, it's Mia coming out of the square, and then Phoenix is sitting, but the chair's legs are
Yeah,
like it's
yeah, and
expanding into
Edgeworth
Edgeworth.
being like Phoenix Shadow. I don't know, I love it. I really liked it.
So yeah,
That was our zoejayw review. Thank you
that
again for
was
letting us feature your art.
that was us ejaculating over Zoe's work, which, holy shit. I mean, if you've played Ghost Trick, you've already made it in for me. Like, you've made it in life.
In Aris appreciation tier list.
So, but drawing Ghost Trick fan art now, that's a different story. So yeah, thank you so much, Zoe, for letting us feature your work. We love everything, and we really want to re-feature you
Absolutely.
for the comic books. And if you're listening to anyone who isn't Zoe, do you please remember that if you don't like every single one of her posts and follow her, you will go to jail.
Yes. And also, if you don't do that, by the law, we could go into your house and steal your stuff.
Yes.
That is what, kind of a loophole. So beware, we will be in your house soon.
It's what the goddess of the law wants.
Yes. Justin Courtney would be proud.
MILF moment. So yeah.
Shall we begin?
We shall. We haven't even said, I mean, we can probably read the title below, but we
Yeah.
haven't
What a bunch of
revealed.
mysterious bestie footwears. We're just not revealing our secrets. Yeah.
No.
So what is today's episode?
Today we will be delving deep, balls deep, into the criticisms of the second trilogy. You've probably
Yes.
read this in the title of the video, but when we were writing our questions, so the two ideas we had was first trilogy versus second trilogy, and then how to fix the second trilogy.
Yes.
Personally, when I was doing my questions, it's kind of an amalgamation of both. So I think the most proper name would be criticisms of the second trilogy because I address the issues, but I don't do it in a way we've already done it, I
Okay,
think.
perfect.
What about you?
Yeah, I think I took it more literally of like, what would you change about? How would you improve? Um, the second trilogy, but you can't really discuss how to improve it without acknowledging how it was bad. So it kind of ties into together. And before we
Exactly.
go in, I just wanted to give a little disclaimer before, especially since we've like started featuring artists. I've started to realize how many people actually do like Apollo Justice, and like I don't want this video to be shitting on any of the games. We're kind of more talking about the trilogy as a whole, which doesn't really feel like a trilogy. So if you liked any of the games that we're gonna discuss, it's just our opinions. We do like loads of things about these games. They're just like when you compare it to the first trilogy and the first game, it's a little lackluster. But there are many things we do like about those three specific games. However, do they work as a trilogy? You can't see me, but my eyes are saying no. And we will discuss it today.
I'm happy you said that, but I will be taking a shit on the second trilogy.
Perfect. Then forget about what I said.
You didn't warn me. I mean, it goes without saying that everyone's entitled to their opinion. Like, me and Lucy are at a disagreement about Dual Destinies.
Yeah.
I'm not going to like delve deep into Apollo Justice because we've talked about it before, but definitely the other two, my questions definitely mention them. Like,
To be fair, I don't think there's loads of Spirit of Justice fan out there. You know what I mean? Like, there are people who are exclusively Apollo Justice's fan, like who like it's the best game of the franchise. I'm not sure people feel that way about Spirit of. Actually, I'll be like, please let us know. Are you a fan of solely a fan of Spirit of Justice? Is Spirit of Justice your favorite game in the franchise? And if yes, please give us your contact information so we do an interview because I'm so intrigued.
do not tempt the I'll be your guide fan base.
Yeah.
Do not tempt the backy wet fan base. I heard they're huge. They're larger than the Swifties, and they will burn our channel to the ground.
Yes.
So I have 6 questions, and when we were discussing what our first episode after the hiatus would be, we wanted to kind of have like a discussion heavy episode because we've really missed that. So what we've done is have each prepared. I have 6. I don't know
Yeah, I
about
have
you.
6 as well.
Okay, so we each have 6 questions and we're gonna go interview style. Do you want me to go first? Okay. So, and for the first time ever, I've written my answers in detail so we don't waste time. So, my first question is order the following problems from most prominent to least.
Okay.
So, I don't know if you want to write this down.
Yeah, I have a pen.
Perfect. So, boring and predictable villains and rivals, such as the Phantom, Nahyuta, or Christoph Gavin. Nonsensical writing, such as Apollo's Origins, Robot Takeover, Apollo vs. Phoenix, and the entirety of Spirit of Justice. Lackluster cases such as Turnabout Storyteller, Monsters Turnabout, Turnabout Revolution, and Academy. Then too many stuff going on, such as Dual Destiny storylines and Spirit of Justice's characters. And then inconsistency, such as the Mason system, Apollo intrusi, Phoenix's return, and Athena's mistreatment. And lastly, the 3D.
The what?
The 3D.
Oh, okay. So let me recap. We had boring and predictable villains, nonsensical writing, lackluster cases, too many stuff going on, inconsistency, and 3D.
The reason I've put example is because, like, if I just said the titles,
Yeah.
they could have been mixed up. But yeah, what's the from biggest to least, do you think?
Because for me, Ace Attorney is such like you've said it best. You're not really playing a game. You're reading a novel. I would put in first place nonsensical writing. I think you can fix a lot of other issue quite easily, but the writing, that's kind of the foundation of the story of the game. So this would be my first. Then trilogy wise, the inconsistency for me is really, really like most of the questions are based on that inconsistency, and it's really frustrating because it doesn't really create a strong trilogy. Like it just creates several games following each other, but it doesn't create like consistency, and like the characters can't grow and have an arc. So nonsensical writing, inconsistency, boring and predictable villains for me would be next.
Okay.
Because it kind of also ties into the writing. Like, they're just I didn't care about it sometimes. I think too much stuff going on also as well was so incredibly frustrating, and just also kind of the writing thing. Then the 3D, it's my second to least because I didn't really care that badly. I remember when I started playing it, I was like, this is awful. But then I got used to it and it didn't bother me by the end. But still, it would have been so much better if it was in 2D. And for me, the last one is lackluster case. It is very frustrating and annoying, but I think even the best game could potentially feature some lackluster case.
Of course.
Like it's not the end of the world, but it's just like this and every other problem that we've discussed made complicated situations. What about you?
I like your reasoning behind everything, and what I was thinking as well is that you'll see that I've placed 3D much higher.
Yeah, of course.
But one thing that I've thought about while you were saying your reasons is that we've never actually considered, like during the podcast, is that although we agree on a lot of things which are oddly specific, like how much we both don't care about the stolen turnabout.
Exactly. I was thinking
like some of the things we agree on are low-key shocking, but despite this, I think one of the main differences we had is that you've played the games throughout your life, whereas I've played it in the amount like a year's time. And I think that definitely shaped how I saw them. For example, like the 3D, because I played the trilogy and it was sprites, and then I played Apollo Justice, and as you know, if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, I think it has the most stunning visuals out of all the games, like every single game. And of course, they also use the same art style in Investigations too, like in the images such as Raymond Shields with Edgeworth. It's the same style. So I really like that art, but then to go immediately into like the next game, which was 3D, that's why I think it bothered me so much, because it was just a taste of like amazingness, and then just straight to shit afterwards.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's an observation.
It's
So,
interesting because when you started saying this, I thought you were going to go in a completely different direction. Is that I cannot draw for the life of me, and I'm not interested in creating art. But Aris is a fantastic artist, and we featured
oh,
him and like his stuff. And so I think visuals are super important to you.
yeah.
Whereas for me, like it's more a means for storytelling. Like 3D didn't. I think also 3D didn't impact me that much for that reason.
Hmm. But it doesn't mean because you can draw, which I've never actually seen you drawing.
I've drew a crocodile once in
When?
front of you. Okay, you're gonna cut this out. You know when we're doing like house and I was drawing, I drew him as a crocodile.
Okay, maybe I'm not gonna. Maybe I'm keeping that in, and I'm gonna leave that out because that's way too
Perfect.
hilarious. But
Yeah, that was my
and
that was my
the
drawing.
and the gag of you thinking I remember.
It
But
was very gorgeous to me.
absolutely. But it doesn't mean because you can't draw that you don't have a taste in art. Like when we met this summer, when I came to visit you for my birthday, most of the pieces you liked in the museums were gorgeous. So it doesn't mean that you don't have taste.
No, it just I think like stories are the most important thing art wise for me. And so, for instance, I do like art and I think it's wonderful, but I think like just my favorite art are art pieces that convey a story. Like, I think that's what I
Mm.
gravitate the most about. And so, I could often, like, I could tell that it was ugly, the 3D, but because it didn't like stop the story too much,
Yeah.
it didn't bother me to a bigger extent.
Mm. Okay. So yeah.
So,
Um,
how would you rank them?
so my list is first is inconsistency.
Mm,
This is the main issue I have with the trilogy. Like the
yeah.
nonsensical writing, like La Miroir abandoning her children, or like a robo takeover. Like I'm like, okay, that's a stretch, but the inconsistency because I'm such a neat person, like who has to have everything neatly perfected. Like you know this about me. I I can't rest until everything is sorted. So
Yeah.
for Apollo's origins to be all over the place, like it's the thing that gets under my skin the most when I think about it. So first is inconsistency, and then would be nonsensical writing, following it directly after. Number three would be the 3D, as we've discussed.
Mm,
Number four would be the same as you, too many stuff going on, because I think it takes away from storylines which would otherwise be super important, such as Athena or Phoenix's return. And then number five would be boring and predictable villains, because I think at the same time they might have been boring and predictable, but it's also because the trilogy set the bar so high in terms of villains that it would be kind of unfair to judge when we compare. Um, and last would be lackluster cases, because it's not all of the cases from the second trilogy are
yeah.
lackluster. But
Yeah,
yeah,
agreed.
perfect.
Yeah, I agree with what you said and your reasoning.
Hmm. So, what is your first question, Bestie Sock?
My first question was, first of all, based on the fact that inconsistency was the plague of the second trilogy. That's what I wrote down. And so I think that even like simple stuff, if
Yeah.
they had just a little more consistency, could have been better. And so, for instance, we have we don't have one detective for the trilogy, which I think helps create that kind of like feeling of having different games because it's a different cast.
Mm.
And so, who would you choose as the detective for the second trilogy? It could be Emma or Fulbright or even someone else.
This is the first time I think about it. Like it's shocking. So I'm a bit taken aback because I have thought even today when I was preparing the questions today morning, I was thinking like, oh, it's Emma, then the Phantom, and then Emma.
Mm.
But I never thought how this was an inconsistency in and of itself. Like, where the fuck was Emma in Dual Destinies?
Exactly. And like, could you imagine the first trilogy with someone else as Gumshoe as
No.
the detective for the second game? Like, it would be so weird.
I know, like, can you imagine for Justice for All, Gumshoe not being there and then him just popping up in Trials and Tribulations? Like, yeah, you're right, it is an inconsistency. But yeah, one of the most recent developments in the podcast is that I've made my peace with Emma Sky, so my answer would have to be Emma Sky. I really vibe with adult Emma Sky.
Yeah.
Like, I would enjoy her snackooing her way through Dual Destinies.
Snackooing is the right verb.
To snackoo,
Yeah.
snackooed.
Put that in your dictionary, English people.
Merriam-Webster.
But yeah, I think Emma for me too. I think I enjoyed Fulbright. He was a fun detective. And I was thinking about it and I was like, Fulbright is the detective equivalent of Clavier Gavin in the way that he treats us.
Okay.
Blonde, dumb, hot, is nice to us, let us investigate, helps us. So I did like that element, but I think Emma was definitely the superior one. And I think that an entire trilogy written by the same person, like, if it was a real consistent trilogy, Emma could have had a wonderful evolution.
Yeah.
And maybe it could have ended with Emma being finally part of the forensic team. I don't know. It could have had a real growth.
Like her starting off in AJ as grumpy and moody all the time because she didn't get what she wanted, like as a child and as a teen, and then in the end she makes peace with it, or she changes it. Like there could have been definite space for growth, but the way they did it, because of Fulbright, we got some half-baked, like, I don't even know what that was, like shipping with Nahyuta. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck was that? Was it like actually implied that they were like having a fling?
Kinda. I
Isn't
think
he a
because she
monk?
was like, oh, I don't even want to think about it. Nahyuta is not worthy of Emma, and he's second.
And he's a monk.
Does he has any dick? I don't know. Don't they?
He's
I don't
that
know.
guy. He's that bald guy from Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, exactly. That's how I view him. But even like, I understand the sentiment of making Fulbright the villain, and I do think that was a good twist. But like, imagine the whole second trilogy with Fulbright as the detective. It could be kind of fun. You would like gouge your eyes out.
I wouldn't gouge my eyes out, but the other thing I wanted to mention before, and in response to that, I'm happy that you mentioned it, is that today I was making coffee in the morning before I did my questions, and that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, like, why... I was thinking, first of all, how many questions do I want to, like, center around Fulbright, because we've talked about it before, but at the same time, what's my problem with it? Like, what's my beef? And I think even though I played Dual Destinies first, Simon Keyes is just a superior twist. He's the superior twist, and it's just been there, done that afterwards. So although I played it first, it was just like, but why? Like, what was the point? What was the reason? Like, why Bobby Fulbright? Like, yeah, he did some horrible shit, but why return to the scene of the crime? Why come back to haunt Athena and Blackwell so many years later? Like, you're an international super spy. Like, a lot of things didn't gel for me, and that's my issue. But if he was in Apollo Justice and then turned out to be a villain, I might have enjoyed that, because that would, like, forget Simon Keys and Bobby Fulbright skating under our noses for an entire game. Imagine Bobby Fulbright skating under our noses for 2 games.
Mm,
That would be interesting. So yeah.
exactly.
Also, the obvious takeaway for this episode is that Nahyuta doesn't have a dick.
You've
And
heard it here. Rumor confirmed.
you best believe we meant it when we said we're back and better than ever. So, my second question, Bestie Sock, is I have a full blown answer for this, like a little paragraph. I said,
Perfect.
I recently watched a video essay, which I link below, which explained that the issue with the new Ace Attorney games is that they refuse to acknowledge each other, such as Apollo and Trucy being siblings not being addressed, and in turn create unnecessary new stuff, such as incomprehensible backstories. And they kind of, I think, I watched it like maybe 2 weeks ago, so I don't really remember the specifics, but the way the dude refers to the problem is something the investigations issue, because he uses investigations as an example. Because in investigations, Edgeworth refuses to say Phoenix's name in case you start with investigations. In case you've been conceived by the ass for some reason and choose to play investigations, such as your
become a
teacher.
physics substitute teacher.
Absolutely. So they call it the investigations problem. Now, my question is, how big do you think this issue is? Do you think I think the essay, the video essay's title is it makes it out to be kind of bigger than it is. So, okay. It truly is this way. It's the title of the video is The Cause of Every Problem in Modern Ace Attorney. So, do you think this is exaggerating, or how big do you think this issue is?
I think it's an excellent point. It's something that I hadn't thought about before. But it's true, and I think it's not the biggest problem in those games, but it is a very big problem because it is, I think, one of the root of that inconsistency, which we've discussed, and it's like it creates like 3 toddlers yelling in your ears at the same time about who's the most important kind of effect on the trilogy.
Yeah.
It seems to be competing against each other and not working for the same goal. And so it kind of reminds me of season 7 and the reunion of Gilmore Girls, where she refused to acknowledge some storyline, and we're just like, well, they happened, we're here, so okay. But yeah, so I think it's not the biggest problem, and I think if all the other problems were fixed and it only remained this one, it would have been a meh trilogy, but good games.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pretty big problem, but not the main one, in my opinion. What about you?
I agree. So what I wrote down is that at first I thought this was a minor issue because we truly never addressed it on the podcast. And I mean, we pretty much are the gods of Ace Attorney. So I kind of like dismissed it as a minor issue. But upon reflection, I thought that this is probably one of the biggest issues that the series has. Because at the end of the day, it refuses to acknowledge how great it is, and as such deteriorates its own value by trying to top the previous game. Instead of continuing the story. If storylines kept flowing from game to game, then this would give greater narrative effect and would feel more natural, instead of creating useless inconsistencies. And I think even like the original trilogy also never really did this, but they made it so subtle. And when it was important, like in Bridge to Turnabout, Trials and Tribulations actually recalled Morgan Fay from the second game. Like, they
Mm,
acknowledged it. So
yeah.
I understand
And
the marketing aspect behind it because they want to sell the games. And when I see franchises such as Final Fantasy, which has like 89 installments, I am intimidated to jump into it because it has like you have to start from the very beginning to understand the story. But I think for Ace Attorney, you don't really have another choice because it's less of a game and more of a story, like a novel. You can't keep ignoring the prequels. It's
mm,
impossible. Like it's nerve wracking.
yeah. And I think that's so true what you said about the first trilogy not doing that, because
Yeah.
they actually did the contrary and they used it for its advantage, because by the time that Trials and Tribulation finished, you had storylines from the first game
Yeah.
being explained and the second game. Imagine if the first trilogy was trying to not acknowledge each game, like
Mm,
the ending wouldn't have made sense.
no.
And they used it. They used the previously built-on story to further their like now narrative, their current narrative. And so, yeah, it's frustrating to see how it was done in the past and how it could have done. I think it really it's a disservice to the games to not acknowledge the one before.
And it's the thing is that when you finish the first game and Misty Faye hasn't been found, you're thinking you don't really think about it. It's like,
Mm,
okay, is that gonna be solved or not? Because she's missing. So there's no immediate solution. But then in the end, because you've played these games, like who would jump in mid game? Like who would jump into the series starting with Trials and Tribulations? It doesn't make sense. So you get to Bridge and you're like, so this is where she's been, and now it comes full circle. Whereas like when there is an immediate solution, such as Phoenix just just outwardly telling Apollo and Trucy that they're siblings, they refuse to acknowledge it,
mm,
which is so frustrating. It's frustrating.
yeah, definitely.
Like if
Agreed.
Trucy or Apollo went missing and then they found each other in the spirit of justice, it would have greater narrative effect.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Or even like you find that out during trial when Apollo is defending Trucy and you
Mm,
realize that I don't know, you thought it was your blood on something, it was her blood on something, and then you realize it's yours because you have similar DNA. Like, imagine the plot twist. You kind of know it as
that's
a,
such a good idea.
like something like that.
Okay,
It could be interesting.
hear me out on this one. What if during the magical turnabout, one of the evidence you had to analyze was Trucy's blood? So they come to the conclusion that they're siblings on their own, and they're so mad at Phoenix for not telling them that that is the reason which Apollo and Phoenix face each other in the final case.
That would be amazing.
Like that the reason between the rift that's created between them is that he never told them.
Mm, that would be like incredible. And it would give so much depth to that trial because, like, first of all, if you're not acknowledging the other games because you're afraid that it would like be complicated for people who haven't played them, what a twist to find out that Apollo and Trucy are siblings for the first time. And for experienced viewers, you would be like, yes, finally, like we get to the bottom of this.
Mm,
So many people who played the game were mad at Phoenix for not telling them, so they could truly be on Apollo's side at the trial
yeah.
because everybody who played Spirit of Justice was like, I want Phoenix to win. Like, I don't want to be against him. We all love Phoenix. And so it was just like, give him an actual reason to fight and for, like, give us reasons to be on his side. And it would have been so much better.
I think we should work at Capcom.
I think so. Capcom, please hire us. We are graduating this year. Our starting salary is about 80K
30,000.
per year, but I think you can afford it.
Absolutely. Girl, I'd settle for peanuts if it meant working on
Yes,
Capcom, let's be
absolutely.
real.
Capcom, don't listen to me. We will do anything.
Okay. So yeah, what's your next question, Bestie Sock?
My next question is kind of my first three questions were kind of in this thing of inconsistency and how to
Mm.
fix it. What would you choose between the two like setups for the games? The Mason system and that kind of thing, or the Dark Age of the Law and the visualization, which is the thing where at the end you're like, oh, this fact led to this fact. You know, at the end when it kind of speeds up and you get into the lawyer's head?
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that.
That's a new gameplay that comes with the Dark Age of the Law. So if you had to like pick one, would be the Mason system, and you change the system as the trilogy progress, or the Dark Age of the Law and the rivalization and da 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 da.
And that carries on to Spirit of Justice or
Yeah,
not? It does?
it does.
I genuinely forgot about that.
Me too. And I was like, oh my god, does this last? But I distinctively remember being like, in the third case of Spirit of Justice, like seeing the words "he killed himself."
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's
Oh, and I saw a meme recently, which it's it's in the magical turnabout, and it's what did Bonnie the fam did do wrong, and it was like trust Robert Breddens or whatever, and one of the options were her life choices. Tempted. So the question is, which one do I prefer?
yeah. Which one would you rather see?
But what's the what's the gameplay behind? So the you mean that the revisualization came with the storyline of the Dark Age of the Law, but the Mason system, would it count as a gameplay or like storyline?
Gameplay, I guess, would be Apollo's brace. I don't know. In my head, the Mason would come with a gameplay thing if they had implemented in
Okay.
further storylines, and you would have to like interact with the jury and kind of understand what they're feeling. So that's kind of the gameplay I have in mind, but it has not been acknowledged in the game.
Although I love the Dark Age of the Law as a
Mm.
premise, which we never got to see. I mean, if the Dark Age of the Law means some clouds over the Turnabout Academy, then I do not want that. But it sounds as a cool premise. Despite this, I want the second trilogy to be about the Mason system. Like, it's introduced in Apollo Justice by Phoenix. You explore a new gameplay mechanic, and then at the end of Dual Destinies, someone takes it over and hacks it, and that's gonna be the sixth game. Like, the Mason system hacked. So Phoenix realizes what a huge problem he's created by introducing this system.
Yeah, agreed.
What about
No,
you?
I totally agree. I think the Mason system could be so much more interesting because so many of like the premises of the cases rely on stupidity. Like you can clearly tell that that person is guilty by like the end of the trial, but the judge or the prosecutor is like, "Ah, well, you have no proof that your client didn't do it, so prove that to me." And if there was the Mason system, that would be removed. So they would have to come up with like more complex trials and more difficult situations, and I
Hmm.
think it could give to like amazing storylines and amazing trials. I think it could remove that kind of laziness that sometimes we see in some trials where like, well, everything proves that this witness done it and is acting super shady and is actually sweating profusely out of his head. But you actually haven't proved that your client is totally innocent. So it just yeah. I think it could lead to great opportunities.
Agro sticking his hands out of his window like Wile E. Coyote holding an anvil over Russell Berry.
Absolutely.
But no, it was fucking Max Galactica.
Jeffree Star. Jeffree Star was busy, I don't know, talking to those demons. He couldn't have done it.
What was the quote we kept saying in our earlier episodes? The one he's sitting
Everybody's
on the
like,
couch.
Jeffrey, come with the receipts. No.
Oh,
That can't
yeah.
be.
Everyone is like, Jeffrey's gonna come with the receipts and we have to be ready to forgive. I am nothing like that. Are you not, bestie Jeff? Master Jeffers? I'm done. I'm officially done with this podcast. You'll have to find a new co-host.
I'm going to actually build a cyborg of you, and that will be my co-host.
Okay.
If you quit. But I will do that after chasing you down the street with a broom and forcing you to come back.
A broom?
Yeah, a broom. I was gonna say knife, but I was like, this sounds a little too aggressive. I don't want you to have that kind of nightmarish vision.
So yeah, I want to see them. Like, can you imagine if in what's it called? I completely forgot the name. Farewell, My Turnabout. There was the Mason system was a play. Like, if you're defending a celebrity, then, like, can you imagine if everyone took Matt and Guard's side because he couldn't possibly be a bad guy?
That would be so interesting.
Yeah,
that would be so interesting.
It's interesting to see how democracy would play into the games.
I think that your idea of like the system crumbling down while Phoenix created it, and like he created a monster, like it could go wrong in so many ways, and that hasn't been explored at
that could be the core trilogy, and like
what if the true culprit was one of the people in the jury? Like,
yes,
it would be so much more interesting than just let's go to Ukraine and have a new law system where we don't have to base it on anything that we've already established.
And that's how Athena could have been introduced, like as someone who could fix the Mason system.
Definitely. Genius.
Okay. So my third question is, following up on the previous question, if you had to bring storylines back from the trilogy, Investigations, or even Apollo Justice, what would you bring? And you don't have to pick one.
Can you re-say all of this?
Yes. Following up on the previous question of the games not acknowledging each other, if you had to bring storylines back from the trilogy, like them either being acknowledged or them being fully unexplored, what would you bring back from either Investigations or the original trilogy or even Apollo Justice, moving into Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice?
Something came into my mind, and I don't know if it's a good idea or not. Because knowing them, it could go horribly wrong. But
Gumshoe selling phone chargers.
No. I was thinking unexplored like storylines from the main trilogy. We know that Francisca has a sister.
Yes.
It would have been so interesting.
Oh, Manfred
not
von
even her as a
Karma's daughter.
prosecutor. Yeah. And maybe she'd be out for blood. Maybe you'd have to defend her. Maybe she'd be a witness. Like, what if she invites us to her mansion in Germany and there's loads of passive aggressiveness and you can kind of tell something is iffy and a murder happens and we have to defend her? Like, maybe she was planning to kill us and instead she killed somebody else. Like, it could be fun. I think it could be... And you just have to say, oh, this is the daughter of an... And because, like, if you have Athena in that case, it's super easy to be like, who is she? And Phoenix could be like, she is the daughter of a former prosecutor that I put in jail.
Yeah.
It could be fun. And it could bring loads of interesting dynamics.
Definitely want to see that. Like, especially as a villain. Like, I think she'd make an
Yeah.
awesome villain, and she has a motive. She does have the motive. I stuck to more traditional ideas, like stuff
Mm.
you'd expect me to say. So I have a list here. I said I want Iris to be mentioned in one way or another.
I completely agree with that.
Like,
And I was gonna say this, but I was like, I've said this a million
yes.
times. I can't
Um,
say it again.
then I said Godot's impact, but not actually Godot because I don't want him to be
Yeah.
selling phone chargers in the street.
Just the references. Just you click on a coffee pot and Phoenix says something
Yes.
about a friend of his liking coffee
Like,
or just something like
he was a prosecutor in one of the biggest, if not the biggest, trials of the entire series.
that. Mm.
Like, and then, like, he's never mentioned again. That's not how it works. I mean, Francisca and Edgeworth come back, and so does Clavier and Blackwell. So what about Godot? Like,
Mm.
and then I said Kay and Gumshoe still being around Edgeworth, like bring in the investigations lore. And then I said the Mason system, and maybe even Kristoff. So that is my list.
Yeah. I think that could be really, really interesting.
I mean,
Even Kristoff, you're right, he's never acknowledged again.
exactly. Morgan
And
Fay is defeated in the second game and then brought back for the third game. So what about Kristoff? He was a really
yeah,
big threat, supposedly.
yeah. And like he deeply impacted Apollo, and I think I didn't like him as a villain because we already knew he was one. It felt like, oh, okay, it's this guy again. But the fact that he's never mentioned again, like, also gives the impression that it didn't affect Apollo at all. So why should you care about this villain if it didn't have any repercussion? Like, it undermines the depth of their relationship
Yes.
and his trust. I don't know.
Putting the question aside, here's a criticism for Apollo Justice. Why does Apollo never mention Kristoff after the first case? Like,
True.
I'm
That is so true. I played Turnabout a Corner, so it's fresh off my mind. He
he
doesn't
doesn't mention
mention
it, and
him.
not neither. And
And he's like mad at Phoenix, but he could be like, I don't want you as my mentor because I can't trust anybody right after this happened to me. And it would have made much more sense than just, oh, I don't like you, Phoenix. You tricked me. And like he would have made it seem
that
less
is
whiny
exactly
and
how he speaks.
yes.
But you have your mentor goes to jail, and you face off his brother, and it's never mentioned. Like, he's never mentioned. Like, how does that make sense? Clavia
Yeah,
never mentions
completely agree.
him. How does that make sense?
And I think they did that because they wanted him to come back at the end to be a
It's
surprise.
not.
So if they talked about him throughout the
It's.
game, it would have like undermined this, but does not work, baby.
I want to see how a peer of Phoenix was actually evil, and how that, like, Phoenix constantly talks about Edgeworth throughout Justice for All. Like, how when Maya mentions him, he's like, shut up, it's like an open wound for him. They make it so clear that he's hurt by like him not being present. Whereas Apollo, like, after Kristoff goes to jail, he does not bat an eyelash.
Mm,
That was his mentor. That was his supposed mentor.
that's crazy.
It was like his Mia.
Like, imagine if Mia was arrested for murder and she actually did it. Like, Phoenix would never recover. I think Phoenix would quit as a
He
lawyer.
would. He
Yeah.
would.
And so, I don't
It's
know. I've
insane.
always felt like Apollo was. I couldn't really relate to
No.
him in a way. Like, it all. I don't know. It felt like they wanted him to act this way and he acted this way, but there was no reasoning behind it. And it was like almost shallow, his fake angry personality. Apollo had a lot of reason to be angry in that game. Give them to him, like let him
Yeah.
have that space for those
He
feelings.
didn't give
I
a
think it would have been a
motive.
great game. if they did that. Yeah.
So what is your next question, bestie?
My next question is, so it's my last of the three about
Let me
like
say it.
inconsistency. What?
Let me say it, bestie.
Oh, I thought you asked my next
I asked,
question.
"What's your next question, bestie?" And then you cut me off. I wanted to say
Sorry. Tell
sock.
me.
That's
Oh, so it is my turn.
it is your turn. You didn't
Ah, you
let
want to
me
say
say
sock?
sock.
I thought it was your turn and I cut you
No.
off. Okay. I was so confused. I was like, I'm going insane actually. Yeah. So, bestie sock, my bestie shoe. My question is, choose one protagonist to center the trilogy around. You can choose either Apollo, Athena, Phoenix, or any other character. Like, who would you, if you're in charge of that second trilogy, who would have been your
Okay,
protagonist?
super interesting. I think this is my next question. Okay, it's my next question is similar, but my immediate answer would be Athena
Mm,
because I much prefer her to Apollo, and I'd like her to have 3 games. But as I was, a more interesting answer would be what I thought about this morning as I was writing my questions. A very eventful morning, a very
yeah.
thought-filled morning. So what I thought about when I was writing this, my questions was, what if the first trilogy remained as is, but the second trilogy was in fact the investigations games? So it'd be
Mm,
the first 3 games Phoenix and the second 3 games Edgeworth.
yeah.
I think that would be much more interesting, and you could, like, what I mentioned before about the games not acknowledging each other is, it's true for the second trilogy, but you kind of give a pass to investigations because it's you can argue that it's a different strand of games. Whereas when it comes to Apollo Justice, Dual Destinies, and Spirit of Justice, I consider it to be a bigger offense because they're the direct sequels of the trilogy. But if the investigations games were in fact the second trilogy, then and they actually acknowledge the previous games, then it could really build upon the relationship Phoenix and Edgeworth have and their dichotomy. I think that would be really
Mm,
interesting.
yeah, definitely.
So yeah.
And I think that's a great answer. I think it could have been. We do have that thing of like, we have wonderful games after the trilogy, so we know they're capable of it with investigation. So it's frustrating that those weren't like the real second trilogy. Um, for me, I have kind of two answers, and it's linked to investigation, which is funny. I know that they hesitated between Miles and someone else for the like newfound series, which was Emma
Yeah.
Sky. And I think that Emma could have been an amazing protagonist for another trilogy.
Mm.
It's both someone who's like known to fans, but who hasn't had like a really great arc in the story, and she has a lot of room to grow. And I think it would kind of go against her character, but I could see her being a lawyer in a
Mm.
way, and maybe her gimmick, her shtick, could be like forensic stuff. Like she could use it in court. Like I don't know. I think it could have been really fun. But I also think that Trucy could have been an amazing thing because first of all, well, both of them are females, and I think, we do miss female lawyers, so it would have been fun playing one. But also, I think acknowledging that Trucy is the daughter of Phoenix would have been a great way of him not being super present in the story, but still being a great homage to the trilogy. And then the whole game could have been Trucy kind of uncovering in trials the truth about her own life and who her father is and Shady Smith and her mom. And it could have been like pretty similar to Apollo Justice, but I think it would have had much more impact because she would have been at the forefront of it and she would have been like the active player in it. She would have had much more power. So I think it could have been interesting. I don't know what I would have done for the second and third game of the trilogy, but I think she had room to grow, and if it had been one protagonist, it would have been much more consistent.
You can't see me, but I've been nodding this whole time. I think my head is going to pop off and roll. But I love the idea of an Emma trilogy, like, because the thing is that Rise from the Ashes sets up the perfect story for Emma, and mix that with the 7-year gap. If there would be a 7-year gap, then there's a nicely built foundation. Like, what if it was like 7 years later? What if it was finally time for Lana to come out of prison, but then something happens in the procedure and she has to go to trial again? So
amazing! You have to defend your sister once again, but this time you have the power.
Yes.
Or what if, like, Lana, because Emma, like, Phoenix has lost his badge, Emma is not a lawyer, so Lana does go to prison, and she gets her badge to free her sister, and it's like the last case where you uncover the whole truth. It could have been so good.
Absolutely. Can you imagine, though? Oh my god. Capcom, sweetie, we don't have anything in our plans, in our agenda. Call us.
We are free. We'll drop anything for you, even if we do have jobs.
Okay. So, my next question is that I think I might skip my 6th question because we're approaching 1 hour and 30-minute territory.
Yeah.
And the next 2 questions are thick, like meaty. So my 4th question is, this is the one I have the biggest answer written down for. And I don't know if you want to take notes because it has multiple layers. So my question is, we've mentioned before that we don't see the second set of games as a trilogy really. Do you think this is due to consistency or because they don't share any common storylines? Do you think the second trilogy's problems with Apollo Justice... Do you think the second trilogy's problems begin with Apollo Justice or after Apollo Justice? If you had to...
Can you just...
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
If you had to make the second trilogy about one single thing, what would it be?
Can you repeat the first sentence? Sorry.
Okay, so do you want me to repeat it and you take notes?
Maybe, I'll see.
So, I said, we've mentioned before that we don't see the second set of games as a trilogy really. Do you think this is due to inconsistency or because they don't share any common storylines? Do you think the second trilogy's problems begin with Apollo Justice or after Apollo Justice? And if you had to make the second trilogy about one single thing, what would it be? Which we've already kind of answered.
I think that, for instance, for the games in the first trilogy had sometimes different themes and different kind of stories and goals. So I think for me it's the lack of cast of the returning cast that appears in all 3 games, a really strong cast, like 1 assistant, 1 lawyer, 1 detective, and maybe a couple of recurring characters.
Yeah.
And the other inconsistencies, I think maybe if it was only 1 theme, I think especially since it's the second trilogy of a very popular first trilogy, maybe the theme of legacy could have been really important. Like, how do you live up to what you've already, what came before you? And it could have been like a nice link between the 2 trilogies.
So when do you think the problems start, though?
I think Apollo Justice is a flawed game, but if they had done... They could have... I think it starts after Apollo Justice. From the way they follow it up, basically.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I agree with what you've said, mostly. I like how you reinvented the answer to a question which we've already asked because I was thinking like character based. But yeah, I love that theme, like legacy. Especially if they kept the year gap, the like 7 year gap, that would add emphasis onto like legacies because it's been a long time. So from
Definitely.
my notes, I said I think the answer is both inconsistency because they don't have any common storylines. The inconsistency definitely makes the games impossible to connect with each other, but at the same time, not sharing a single storyline makes them feel like one offs. The original trilogy felt like the story of Phoenix gaining his confidence as an attorney, Maya maturing and discovering the fate of Misty Faye, and Edgeworth following in his father's footsteps and abandoning the Von Karma name. The second trilogy's problems therefore start with Dual Destinies because even though Apollo Justice might have been disrespectful to the original trio of games, Dual Destiny's disrespect of Apollo Justice was much greater.
Mm,
If I had to choose a single thing for the second trilogy to focus on, it would be Apollo, because although I hate him and I think he's boring, I can see how that could change in the course of a trilogy. Excuse me, and the main storyline could be him expressing how sad and hollow he is inside before eventually finding happiness in the end of the third game. And then I thought this is what I wanted to bring up before when we were talking about Christoph and Godot. It's interesting that the games don't tackle mental health and especially
mm,
the mental state and health of a lawyer, and how if you defend a killer that could traumatize you. For example, Phoenix never expressed his trauma and has been through too much, like getting accused of murdering Mia by both Red White and Godot, Maya's kidnapping, and then Guard in general, and Dahlia even. Like, if all of these incidents didn't shape him into a different person during the trilogy, then why did they change him afterwards? And where did his newfound confidence sprout from? So, like, it'd be interesting if the mental health of the attorneys was explored. If not Phoenix, who definitely has trauma after everything I've mentioned, then Apollo being unhappy and eventually finding happiness. It's something we never see.
mm. That's so true. Like, it could have been so interesting to explore.
Yeah.
And, like, the same way that Apollo's, like, for instance, the trust of Apollo in others and especially lawyers is broken by the first case of your game. Explore that kind of the toll it takes on his mental health
Mm,
and how can he trust his client after the fact that he couldn't even trust his mentor? Like that could have been an interesting pattern or something like that. It's just yeah. I think you brought amazing points and really good
thank
ideas.
you. But yeah.
I was nodding.
So, what is your fourth question? Fourth?
My fourth question is select one case per game for your new trilogy.
Oh, that's a fun little key. Um, from each of the new games, you mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So definitely Turnabout Serenade. Um,
of course.
you
The
mean,
Scooby Doo one.
yeah, you mean one from each, right?
Yeah,
So Turnabout Serenade, and then do I have to take them as they are, or can I change them?
you can change them.
Okay, then Turnabout Serenade, then the Cosmic Turnabout,
Hmm.
because I feel like Academy. No, actually, I take that back. Turnabout Academy, but make it completely different. Because the Cosmic Turnabout, I feel like could be easily fixed if it wasn't like the prelude to Turnabout for Tomorrow. Whereas Turnabout Academy needs a complete overhaul. Like, I don't want any shit about like a school where it's only lawyers, prosecutors, and judges or shit like that. I want like just a school where a murder takes place. Like,
I love
what
that. It could be so much fun.
what if like
Let us see the dorms.
Athena and Phoenix were in the Erased, the anime?
So true. I was gonna say cat within pigeons,
Oh yeah.
kind of that vibe.
Oh my god. Yeah, school full of girls.
Yeah, could be so much fun.
So yeah, Turnabout Serenade, Turnabout Academy, and then the Magical Turnabout. What about you? Oh, we also have Reclaimed, the Aquatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe switch Academy for Aquatic.
Mm. I have similar answers. It was a tie between Turnabout Corner and Turnabout Serenade, but I think Serenade is the most fun one out of the two. Like you're at a concert,
Yeah.
at a rock concert, the murder almost happened on stage, like so cool. Then it was Turnabout Reclaimed for me, but after hearing stuff about Academy, kind of like this one as well. And honestly, I would much like. It didn't hate Spirit of Justice, but it's crazy that I can't even pick one. Like none of the cases are appealing to me.
Absolutely.
I think I'm gonna take shocking choice, but if I could change it,
Storyteller.
Storyteller could have been fun. And I mean, like, you could have had like a theater, some fans, like, it could have been fun. They ruined it, but it had a good premise. Yeah.
I never expected this.
Everything is not what it seemed, like Selena Gomez said.
Go bestie Selena. So my possible, I mean, if we have time, I'll ask the other one. It's a short question.
Yeah, is this your last question?
This is my penultimate
I was
question.
gonna
The
ask
last
that.
one is a really short one. So my fifth question is, as an act of severance from the old, the developers themselves have admitted that they didn't want to have any characters from the trilogy return in Dual Destinies. But despite this, I found Athena's backstory to be an imitation of Maya's. In general, do you think the second trilogy suffered from over-reliance on the first trilogy, such as returning characters like Gumshoe, Mike Meekins, Emma Skye, Maya and Edgeworth, Perils, and even Phoenix, and also copying storylines? Or do you think it was simply exploitation for fan service? What's the difference between the examples I just mentioned and Investigation's relationship with the original trilogy? Big question.
Well, it's a heavy question, but it's an interesting one. I think that the problem with the way that the trilogy handled it is that it both tried to not do it and do it at the same time. You could have gone one of two routes. Acknowledge the past and include it in your story, or try to do something completely new and sever all ties with that kind of thing. For me, Investigation works because it has that first kind of option of the acknowledgement of the past. No one is trying to say that Edgeworth doesn't know all of these people. Yeah, he's met them. He talks about Phoenix without naming him. It's part of his life and he hasn't forgotten it. And so that's why it flows so nicely with the story when those characters return. Like they feel like people that Edgeworth bumps into after not seeing for years. It feels normal, like real life. But because I think the difference, and it's gonna sound very judgmental, but it's the relationship of respect between the first trilogy and the games after that. I think Investigation had loads of respect for the original trilogy, and I think that the second trilogy destroyed a lot of what happened in the first trilogy. They ruined Phoenix's character, and so they both destroyed and want to borrow themes from it and characters. It just feels like a dissonance. Like it doesn't make sense. That's what I think.
Dollhouse.
Yes, exactly.
I agree. And I'm happy that we both agree that although Edgeworth doesn't mention Phoenix's name, there's a clear acknowledgement of the first games. Like even the
Absolutely.
characters that just pop up, like Rondelite and Desiree being at the museum.
Frank saw it.
Yes. Or like Phoenix having a cameo in both games.
Mm.
Like it definitely
Oh,
has.
where is he at the second one?
He's in the shooting area for Mozilla. When you go completely up, he's in the street behind with Maya
Really?
and Pearls, I think.
I didn't saw
Yeah,
him.
and they're lost. Like they're looking at a
Oh my
map or
god,
something.
that's
Wait,
so cute.
I'll find it now.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, that's adorable. Like it's
It
respectful.
is.
It's like it's an homage. It's not, well, we're gonna do better than it and we're burning it to the ground.
So it's Maya and Phoenix,
Oh, that's actually adorable. I love
and they're
this.
looking up at the building. They're not lost.
Oh, that's so cute.
I agree. Yeah, it's a sign of respect. And what I said in my notes is that I think generally there is an over reliance on the trilogy in terms of storylines, especially. I think
Mm,
Dual Destinies took a step in the right direction because Spirit of Justice as Maya and Edgeworth, although it'll sound harsh, brought absolutely nothing new. And also, I just remember Larry is in Spirit of Justice as well. I completely forgot about that. So, although, yeah, Maya and Edgeworth brought absolutely nothing new, and Capcom's failure to develop these characters after almost 10 years have passed in the in game universe, this points at them being pointless fan service, like not changing Maya's personality.
mm,
But Dual Destiny's original characters were badly written in the first place anyway, so it might have worked to their benefit to bring them back. I
yeah.
think the way to go would be Apollo Justice's treatment of Emma, who is a detective and nothing more. That took a character we only saw once in the trilogy and turned her into something new, develop her story without relying on her too much, as opposed to Papa Hat Phoenix, which was a complete destruction of Phoenix's character. I think the difference between the second trilogy and Investigations is that Investigations brought back characters so effortlessly and shamelessly that by Investigations 2, it kind of became its own shtick, like just
Mm,
random characters like Penny Nichols
yeah.
popping up. Plus, it put these old characters into new context because of original storylines and cases instead of blatant copies,
Absolutely.
like Simon Keys.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
I agree. Yeah. It's sad. It's just it makes me sad to see what they were able to do with investigation and what they couldn't do
Yeah.
for the second trilogy.
That's why I said it. I was thinking about how it would be a better second trilogy
Yeah,
because it would.
exactly. It makes a lot of sense.
So yeah. What is
Are
your?
there any rumors of Investigation 3?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I wish.
Me too.
I wish we had that Justine Courtney game with Paul Button.
Yes.
That is Turnabout podcast acknowledging its previous episodes, unlike the second trilogy.
Absolutely. So I don't know if I'm gonna keep my last question.
Okay.
It was a super short one. So this is my last real discussion question, and it is, what do you think would have happened if Shu Takumi didn't write Apollo Justice? Like, if the second trilogy was completely written by someone else.
Wait, do you mean the entire trilogy or just Apollo Justice?
I think he didn't write Dual Destiny and Spirit of Justice,
He
right?
didn't write them, but I think he either directed or produced. But like, I think he definitely had his
Pause print.
Yes.
Well, if he hadn't had any contact with the second trilogy.
So, I mean, definitely, if there was a single writer, the issues of consistency wouldn't exist, except if it was horrible writing. But that's the thing, that like Shu Takumi wrote 4 games and DGS because he's Shu Takumi and Ghost Trick. He's such a great writer. I don't know if I trust the property in someone else's hands, like as seen in Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice. Like, I think it might have been consistent, but I don't know about the quality of the writing.
Yeah.
And it's a scary prospect to think about. But yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it would have fixed the issue of consistency. But what I'm afraid of, I think they would have brought back Phoenix. And I think they would have brought back Phoenix, Maya, and everything. And I think it would have kind of destroyed everything that was built. I think that, like, the second trilogy didn't ruin the first one for me, you know what I mean? Like, even if I thought that Maya wasn't really well written, like, it wasn't, like, it just didn't destroy it for me. So I think it could have been potentially really, really bad,
it could have,
even though it would have been consistent.
Definitely potential. Like, I didn't think of what you're saying, but it could have very much have been Sex and the City, the second movie.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like, if at least Shu Takumi might have left with a fuck you after he included Phoenix, as we've discussed with Thomas, when he didn't want to include him in the story, but Capcom pressured him to include him, so it was kind of like a fuck you when he completely destroyed Phoenix. But at least he left with a 7-year gap, which threw everything into a fuck all. So
yeah, and it was like he took risks. I can respect that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, he tried something new. He wasn't like, well, everybody loved the first trilogy, so I'm just gonna do the same thing over and over again. And you know what? Actually, what if Maya's dad is the villain in the next game? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't reuse all of his ideas.
I definitely play that game. But
yeah, me too.
I think also that was his way of like sealing what he did into the past. Like, if he continued with that storyline, then we might have ended with a Sex and the City, the second movie. Whereas the 7-year gap was like, no one is gonna touch what I worked on. Like, you can only work in the future
go back
story.
Into the past.
Like, you can't do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like if what's her name? Amy Palladino or whatever her name is, like, after season 6 of Gilmore Girls killed them in a car accident.
Yeah.
So I know I'm never gonna write this again, so they might as well die.
Exactly.
But here's another question which I've just thought about. If the second game truly comes out, if a 7th game truly comes out and Shu Takumi isn't involved, wouldn't it be insane if that was the second trilogy? Dual Destinies.
Wait, re-say that?
If a 7th game truly comes out and Shu Takumi isn't involved, wouldn't it be insane if that was the second trilogy? So the first 3 games, Apollo Justice as an interlude, and then the 3 next games would be the second trilogy.
Huh. That would be cool. But because Dual Destiny and Spirit of Justice doesn't really feel like a
No,
follow-up
it
to each
doesn't.
other, I don't know it would work. But if, like, for instance, if it flows up brilliantly out of Spirit of Justice, why not? Yeah.
Let's not jinx it. But yeah,
Do you want to ask your last question?
it's short. It's really short.
Let's do our 2 rapid fires one. Yeah.
Okay, so mine is to end on a positive note, choose anything from the second trilogy you'd like to see in the original trilogy.
That you what?
Choose something from the second trilogy you'd like to see in the original trilogy.
To be fair, it's gonna sound like, now that you've mentioned it, a case centered around a school could have been amazing in the first trilogy. Like that premise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Could you imagine like Phoenix being in an all girls school and maybe like Edward would be the prosecutor and they'll all have a crush on him and Maya would like be totally befriend them. It will be so much fun.
I truly want that. I started writing my answer, and my original answer was that I'm not that mad at the idea of a civil trial as seen in Turnabout Revolution. But then I thought, that's how Stolen Turnabout begins.
Oh yeah, that's right, yeah.
I never actually thought we have a civil trial in the original trilogy. That's insane. So yeah, my ultimate answer would have to be perception or the history option where you can read the previous dialogue.
Oh, that's such a good one.
Because
Definitely.
we don't have it. We don't have it.
That is an excellent feature of the second trilogy, you're right.
It is.
Like, it's so useful. Because sometimes you just pass the week like, oh my god, what did this relate to? Like, so good.
Yeah. So, what's your question?
So, my last question is based on the essence of the 3 games, Apollo, Justice, DD, Spirit of Justice, like what they exhume, fuck, marry, kill.
Kill Spirit of Justice. Fuck Dual Destinies, and I mean that in the most cruel way possible, like hate fuck Dual Destinies. And marry Apollo Justice because she's taking risks. She's very much out there. She's a fun little person. She might not be the best. She might be a bit depressing, and her color is brown. But we all have our flaws. What about you?
I get that. Kill Spirit of Justice, fuck Apollo Justice, and marry Dual Destiny because it is my favorite game out of the second trilogy. It does make me laugh a lot. Just it has big chaotic energy to it. So yeah, that is my answer.
Okay. I can't. When you said my favorite game is Dual Destinies of the second trilogy, I was like, she can't be serious. Mine would be. And then I was like,
yeah,
I don't have a favorite game.
There's no good answers.
I don't have a favorite game from the second trilogy.
Yeah. They're all blah.
Oh my god.
Well, on that note, which sums up this episode pretty well.
On that note of your 2 hosts talking about fucking literal video games. Not characters, video games.
Just the essence of the games.
Us fucking DS cartridges.
Yeah, absolutely. This wraps up this week's episode.
It is good to be back.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys next week.
We hope you enjoyed this unhinged episode.
Comeback. Aris, what are you going to do now?
I was about to ask you, Bestie Sock. Now, I was actually, before we called and before I had dinner, was watching a horror movie with Bradley Cooper, and I was thinking how much I hate him for making that movie where he was a soldier or something and it got like major American attention. I was like, why are we glamorizing a
Yeah.
soldier? Like,
Did he direct it?
or something like that. I don't remember.
I remember I didn't watch it, but there's a scene where he has a fake baby, and it's very obvious that it's a fake baby, and it's hilarious because he tries making it move. It's very funny. American Sniper, something along those lines.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. So, what I'll be doing after this recording is just thinking about American Sniper while I poop.
amazing.
It deserves to be in the toilet.
Yeah, I get that.
What about you, Bestie Hawk?
I'm going to shake that groove thing to the song Shake That Groove Thing, which is a song made in the 70s that I love dearly because the lyrics are just so weird. It's like an instructional dance about teaching you how to shake that groove thing. So that is my plan for the evening.
You cannot see me, but I'm very much embodying Dua Lipa looking around, confused.
I love that video so much. She looks so confused. I will send this song to you as soon as we end.
Yes, please do. I have to listen to it. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in.
We love
And
you.
we love you, and we hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Gina, you're unhinged. I'm unhinged, darling.
See you next
So,
week.
see you next week, everyone. Good
Bye.
night.